The new head of Israel's military, Eyal Zamir, warns that 2025 will be the year of focusing in on Iran. It's going to be a very interesting next few months.
במשך שנים רבות צה"ל עמד במשימותיו. ב-7 באוקטובר צה"ל כשל. היה כאן כישלון עמוק. אך אין זה נכון שכישלון בסדר גודל כזה יתוחקר רק בצה"ל ובשב"כ. צה"ל הוא חלק מסדר עדיפות לאומי, מקבל מדיניות ופועל על פיה. הקמת ועדת חקירה ממלכתית נחוצה וחיונית, לא כדי להאשים, אלא בראש ובראשונה כדי להגיע לשורש הבעיות ולאפשר תיקון.
לא נסלח ולא נשכח. זוהי מלחמת קיום. נמשיך במערכה להחזרת חטופינו ולהכרעה. המשימה שמוטלת עליהם היום היא ברורה. להוביל את צה"ל לניצחון.
I want to believe that the US will stand by our side, but we have to be ready for that not to be the case. Whether we reach peace in Ukraine soon or not, we need to be able to recognize the Russian threat and better defend ourselves in order to deter such attacks. Whatever happens, we need to provide ourselves with more arms, more equipment in terms of defense, to provide a dissuasive force. And we're committed on that path. We need to do more than we've done in the past to reinforce our defense and security. The future of Europe cannot be decided on in Moscow or Washington. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, we have seen 3 decades which are now behind us. We're moving on to a new age. We're meeting with the Commission tomorrow, the President of the European Council, for an extraordinary summit. We'll take a number of long-awaited steps which we've been proposing for a number of years, increase in military expenditure, which is something that will be allowed without having it to be subject to deficit rules. Measures to ensure that armaments can be produced on European soil. The latest cutting-edge technology will mobilize the government to strengthen our armies as soon as possible and accelerate reindustrialization in all of our countries. We'll work together with the enterprises in these sectors in the coming days. So, Europe's defense sector, which we've been asking for the last 8 years, will have to become a reality to allow European countries to defend and protect themselves, to produce the equipment they need in their countries, to allow them to cooperate more, and to allow them to reduce their dependence on outside actors. Germany, Poland, Denmark, Baltic states, and many of our partners have announced unprecedented efforts in terms of military spending. So as we look ahead to these actions, France has to recognize its special status. We have the most efficient, effective army in Europe. Because of the choices made by our forefathers after the Second World War, we have a nuclear deterrent, which protects us a lot more than many of our other neighbors. But we didn't expect, or rather, it wasn't necessary to await the invasion of Ukraine to recognize the increasing threats. We've seen how necessary it is to build our defense, and we've doubled our military budget, as you can see on this graph. Because of these efforts, we are now in a position to make supplementary investments. And we'll ask the government to work as quickly as possible on this. These are new investments which will allow us to mobilize private financing and public financing without increases in tax.
At least 14 people have been killed and as many as 30 people were injured in a fresh wave of Russian strikes on Ukraine. Local officials in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region said 11 people were killed, while authorities in the Kharkiv region said 3 people had died from the Russian drone strike overnight. The attacks came hours after the US confirmed it had limited Ukraine's access to satellite imagery.
Успів вскочити в двері, тільки в убіжище. Тільки вскочив в убіжище, сильне зарево і звук шрапнелі по дверям. Тобто я зрозумів, що попало конкретно в нас.
Ukrainian authorities released video footage showing flames engulfing a multi-story building in Dobryya following the Russian strikes overnight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attacks, saying such strikes show that Russia's goals are unchanged.
Vladimir Putin launched a hypersonic missile to allegedly sink a foreign cargo ship that was said to be carrying British weapons to Ukraine. Russia is said to have unleashed an Iskander-M missile that hit a Panama-flagged container ship soon after it arrived in Odessa. Ukrainian sources suggest that 2 port workers were wounded in the strike, which also damaged the infrastructure of the port. However, no evidence as of now suggests that the ship was carrying British military weapons for Kyiv's use. Ukraine claims at least 20 foreign merchant ships have been damaged in the previous strikes by Russia. It comes as a dozen leaders from Europe and NATO have assembled in London today for Crunch Summit in a bid to salvage a peace deal for Ukraine. Sir Keir Starmer today said that Britain, France and Ukraine have agreed to work on a ceasefire plan and present it to Donald Trump. The PM also spoke with Donald Trump in an attempt to bridge the rift between the US and Europe after the historic White House showdown, which he found uncomfortable to watch. He said he is focused on being a bridge to restore peace talks, and he used the collapse of the talks as an opportunity to re-engage with Trump and Zelensky. Today's summit is likely to include talks on establishing a European military force to be sent to Ukraine and underpin a ceasefire deal.
Its response to US tariffs has been swift and strong. For 2 days in a row, it's put out this statement. If war is what the US wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. After the session, a chance to try and grab the thoughts of the country's elite. What impact will the trade war have on China?
I think it'll have little impact on China because we treat others the way they treat us.
Our tech develops so fast. Just look at DeepSeek. Look at how fast our AI develops.
Far from the political capital, at the other end of the country in Guangzhou, a glassware exporter braces for the latest tariffs and hopes for the best.
I think the people will discuss this at the beginning, but yeah, of course, 10% is a huge number. You know, some profit even lower than this, but we cannot change it. Just get used to it and let it be.
However, it's not easy to let it be when old alliances are shifting and relationships crumbling. And in this new world, as China says, everything is changing fast. Nicole Johnston, Sky News, Beijing.
Iran, Russia and China are strengthening their military ties through joint exercises, which will take place off the coast of Iran from Tuesday. The drills aim to strengthen security, boost multilateral cooperation and counter what they perceive as American hegemony. The exercises, codenamed Security Belt 2025, are taking place in the northern Indian Ocean near the port of Chabahar in southeast Iran. The exercise will include simulated attacks on maritime targets, joint search and rescue drills, spot checks and arrests. China has sent the Type 05-2D guided missile destroyer, Baotu, and supply ship, Gaoyu, from the 47th Naval Escort Task Force to take part in the exercise. For Iran, Russia and China, this exercise is an opportunity to expand their influence across West Asia. This partnership is seen as a challenge to U.S. influence in the region. The Gulf of Oman is a strategic location with many major shipping lanes and oil routes passing through it, making security in this region a top concern. Just last month, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian signed an agreement to boost cooperation in areas including trade and military. The deal comes amid rising tensions between U.S. and Iran. President Trump has vowed maximum pressure to drive Iran's oil exports to zero. He has called for a plan to ask allies to stop and inspect Iranian oil tankers at sea under international accord aimed at preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Now, Iran had shot back at Trump, accusing the U.S. of bullying tactics. Iran's UN mission has stated that the country is open to negotiations with the U.S. only if the talks focus on addressing concerns about the potential militarization of its nuclear program. However, it made it clear that if the aim of the negotiations is to dismantle its nuclear program, then talks would never happen.
I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other, but the other will solve the problem. And something's going to happen very soon, very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. You know, I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other, but the other will solve the problem.
Some bullying governments insist on negotiation, but their negotiation is not aimed at resolving issues, it's for domination. Their approach is, let's negotiate so that we can impose whatever we want on the other side sitting across the table. If they accept, great. If they don't, we will stir up a fuss, saying they distanced themselves from the negotiation table and walked away from the talk. The issue isn't just the nuclear issue that they're talking about now. They'll raise new demands, and these new demands will certainly not be met by Iran, regarding the country's defensive capabilities, regarding the country's international influence. Don't do this. Don't meet that person. Don't go to that place. Don't produce that thing. Your missiles' range shouldn't exceed such and such a distance. Can anyone accept these things? This is what negotiation is for.
مذاکره برای این چیزاست.
The level of destruction is beyond anything you can even imagine.
Donald Trump has warned monster nuclear weapons could end the world as he sounded the alarm over atomic Armageddon.
Everybody has to spend all this money on something that if it's used, it's probably the end of the world.
The president issued the stark warning in a TV interview on Sunday morning after he floated new arms controls with Russia and China. In an interview with Fox News, Trump said he believes nukes are one of the greatest threats to mankind. The US has the second largest nuclear weapons stockpile in the world, with around 5,000 weapons. Russia has the most, with nearly 6,000, with China a distant third, with around 350. Nuclear weapons have only been used in anger twice, when the US bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II. The 78-year-old went on to say that too many people are focused on claims of climate change, rather than tackling the global threat posed by nukes. The president said the threat of nuclear weapons is immediate, warning, it could happen tomorrow. Trump explained, I watched Biden for years say the existential threat is from the climate. I said no. The greatest is sitting on shelves in various countries called nuclear weapons that are big monsters that can blow your heads off for miles and miles and miles. Russia has repeatedly rattled the nuclear saber in the war in Ukraine, and Putin has long threatened the world with his ambitious super weapons, such as the Satan II nuke. Trump has long vowed to be the president of peace and said he wants to end wars worldwide, especially the raging conflict in Ukraine.
On Russia, if I may, President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
You know, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine, and Ukraine. I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now. And I put a statement in, a very strong statement. Can't do that. Can't do that.